1, 2, 3. And I'm now joined here by Fianna Fáil TD for CarlowKIlkenny, Peter Chap Cleere. Chap, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup. Chap, the last time we spoke, you've been appointed Fianna Fáil spokesperson on agriculture, and just there recently this week in the Dáil, you've raised the issue of the acres payments that has seen close to 6,000 farmers not received their payments. Where are things now as they stand?
Yeah, I suppose, look, first of all, I'm delighted to be with you here again in the glorious sunshine here in Dublin this afternoon. But yeah, absolutely, I was thrilled there recently to be appointed as spokesperson for agriculture for Fianna Fáil. It's a very important brief, and I was delighted to get the call from the Taoiseach to give me the opportunity to represent the party in that area. And I suppose acres, the first thing about acres is it is a really, really popular scheme. It was massively oversubscribed. It was supposed to be capacity for 50,000, I think it was 56,000 entrants, but there has been issues and there has been delays with payments for an awful lot of farmers. An awful lot of progress has been made over the last number of weeks and months, still not where it should be, but we're being told that by the end of June, the majority of the cases should be sorted, and some of them are quite complex cases, where there's partnerships and this and that. So it's frustrating for the farmers that they have to wait this long. But I think a lot of your viewers might acknowledge there has been a huge increase in the speed at which payments are being paid out in the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And how do we prevent things like this happening into the future, Chap?
Yeah, well, I suppose the simplification is the big thing. I mean, we're in the process now where we're getting ready for Common Agricultural Policy for 2027, and we want to make sure we have a single Common Agricultural Policy. We're not going to be multi-funded, including with everything else. So it's really, really important that we get a good deal there, get as much funding as possible. But as part of that CAP process, we need to ensure simplification. There's an awful lot of red tape, an awful lot of bureaucracy. Certainly standards need to be met and things need to be done, but the bureaucracy, the red tape that's there at the moment is very, very frustrating. It's a very complicated process, and it's as I said to you, it's slowing down the process for everybody.
And you would talk to a lot of farmers in your role. I'm sure bureaucracy is one of the many issues that are coming up when you're speaking with farmers across the country.
Yeah, so we had our agricultural committee meeting yesterday, and again it came up in terms of the simplification and just the lack of simplification in terms of all of the different options that are there for farmers, whatever. So that really needs to be streamlined. I'm hoping as part of CAP 2027, we really want to make sure we do get that simplification for farmers. Like rural Ireland has an awful lot of great things going for it, but there's a lot of challenges as well. So things like generation renewal, making sure that younger people that are from a rural area or farming background can build in their communities and in their rural towns and villages. So there's an awful lot of things like that needs to be done through the CAP policy.
Absolutely. And Roisin and myself, we've been out and about in South Kilkenny, and we've been talking to a lot of councillors. And Chap, the N24, the N25, it keeps coming up. It's a big issue. Where are we as regards the funding coming towards Kilkenny to complete those safety works?
Yeah, I suppose, look, I've raised this issue in the Dáil with the Taoiseach only 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's very, very frustrating, I suppose, the funding wasn't made available this year. The N25 is in the NDP, which is being reviewed. So I spoke with the Minister, Jack Chambers. I spoke with Minister Darragh O'Brien. I spoke with the Taoiseach. The next allocation of funding is going to happen around October, November, and I'm working really, really hard to make sure that we have funding for the N24 to be completed to the next stage, the N25 to be completed to the next stage, and for the ring road in Kilkenny to be included in the NDP. And all this costs money, but I've made as hard a case as I can in terms of whether it be safety or in terms of improving the lives of so many people around N24 and 25 and the ring road in Kilkenny in particular. Those 3 will be the big priority for Kilkenny.
And there are important infrastructure projects, and
they're huge.
To get them over the line will be extremely important.
Look, they're hugely important. You look at the N25, I mean, it's the gateway from Bellevue Port the whole way over to Cork and to Limerick, whatever, so that road needs to be made safer, as does the N25, but also the ring road in Kilkenny is a huge strategic importance for the development of the city as well. So there's a lot of projects that are out there, but those 3 are the 3 that we need to see urgency on, and I'll be campaigning very, very hard with the Taoiseach. He's committed that he'd look at it for me, try and find the funding to get those 3 projects to the next stage. So talk is one thing, but we need to see the funding allocated, these schemes progress as quickly as possible. That's what I'll be championing and campaigning for.
Absolutely. And continuing the theme of driving and roads, CarlowKIlkenny, there are only 5 testers in the driving test centres in the 2 counties. So young people, they're experiencing massive wait times for driving tests. Chap, is that sustainable?
No, absolutely not. And again, I raised it in the Dáil only 2 weeks ago. Again, in terms of the RSA, the waiting list in Kilkenny a month ago was 24 weeks. It was 26 weeks in Carlow. Wow. Huge delays. Now the standard service level agreement is for 10 weeks. Now I do know Kilkenny has been reduced down. There was a transport committee meeting yesterday. You're down to around 19 weeks in Kilkenny. It's not good enough. We're needing out to 10 weeks, but I've been assured by Minister Noel Grealish that by the end of September we'll be back down to normal working arrangements. There was a recruitment process in place. I said to you, 5 between Carlow and Kilkenny. You're not going to do a whole lot of. You're not going to start out backlogs with that. So additional staff have been recruited, and I do know that the people that are working in the RSA side of things are testing evenings, weekends. So there is a concerted effort to get those numbers down, because look, 24, 26 weeks, it's not sustainable. It's not fair either, because I'm after meeting so many people, whether it be young people that need it for work, young apprentices that want to get going and are caught or hamstrung, and we need to be able to support these people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and
10 weeks is long enough as it is.
Oh, it's
wrong. 10 weeks is a long wait.
It is a long, and it's a tough. It's a tough test.
It's a tough test, but 6 months is just not sustainable. It's not viable, and I suppose the feedback I suppose this whole additional staff coming in is as a result of people on the ground saying, look, I've so many representations at the moment for right around the two counties of people who are basically saying, look, I'm waiting 6 months for my test or 5 months for my test, and I really, really need it for work, or to bring my parents to hospital, or whatever the case would be, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And rural Ireland, where we don't have an abundance of public transport, it is essential that you have access to a car that you can drive. So it affects not just your ability to work, but affects so many other aspects if you're living in a rural area.
No, it is, and it is a big issue. And as I said to you, 26 weeks in Carlow and 24 weeks in Kilkenny is not good enough. It's not acceptable. So there is plans in place. Additional people have been recruited, and I'm being told by the minister only recently that by the end of September that we should be back to normal service level arrangements, which is 10 weeks. Which again, for me, is still too long. But at the same time, there is a process that's there, and if we got to 10 weeks, I think most people are reasonable. They could live with that in terms of getting an appointment.
Absolutely.
Deputy Chap Cleere, you have been doing a campaign on scam alerts and everything scamming. I have been inundated with people asking me to talk about scam calls and everything else. A big issue a lot of people are having is with our service providers here in Ireland, our electricity, our mobile phones, our gas. Everything is outsourced outside Ireland, but more importantly, outside the European Union, where data protection is only protected by safe harbour. Yeah. Safe harbour is not worth the paper it's written on. Yeah. And I had an instance this week. I had my own service provider phone me, and they wanted me to verify. So I asked, could they verify who they were, because I'm scammed out, hacked out. Yeah. And they couldn't. They told me they were phoning from Cork. Right? So I said, whereabouts in Cork? They didn't know where they were phoning from Cork. So then I asked to speak to the manager, because data protection is important. So I spoke to the manager, then he tried to tell me for about half an hour he was in Cork, but he couldn't tell me whereabouts in Cork. And then he said, look, I'm actually in Castlebar in Mayo. Should all our customer service teams and all be brought back into a customer service building all in one place and not out on remote working?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I suppose just get to your first point first in terms of the SMS scam filters. It is a specific measure in the program for government, because your viewers, and it's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to yourself, you get these scams, telling you that your ESB is due or your bank wants, and it can be very, very worrying, particularly for vulnerable people. And there still is a sense of embarrassment sometimes when people do give away their details or their bank details. And I've come across numerous instances, only in the last couple of weeks, in our own constituency, of people who have been duped by fraud scams. So there is a filter that can be put on. It is a specific measure in the programme for government, and I'm working with Jim O'Callaghan in relation to that to try and get that legislation through. And obviously with our European counterparts, it is already in place in Britain, that SMS scam filter, and Australia and other countries. But I suppose you just need to get it into Ireland first of all. And I suppose in relation to your second point then, in terms of the outsourcing of, it is a great bone of contention with a lot of people that, let's say you ring up a company or a utility provider and you want to speak to somebody, and it's outsourced to, never mind Mayo, let's say it's outsourced to anywhere outside the European Union. Exactly. And it's done from a cost. But I had a person on to me recently, a really, really worried person who had problems with Irish water or whatever, and I said to you, it was all outsourced, and there was a real communication challenge between that person and the person who was abroad, and it just lit a huge frustration. So I suppose there's the competitive side in terms of each company, in terms of their costs and all that, but there's also, so I'd be very pro-Irish and pro-European to try and make sure that we keep as many jobs in Ireland as possible. And I suppose we need to have the infrastructure in place to allow these companies to do that. We have the skilled workforce for full employment in this country, but we just need to make sure that the infrastructure can back it up.
Because it's not fair on Irish citizens here in Ireland when we are paying extortionate service provider payments and costs that is outsourced to countries, and we're not even supporting local jobs or the local economies. Because when we support local jobs, we're supporting local economies, and then the communication barrier as well.
That's hugely frustrating. The communication piece in particular seems to be hugely frustrating. That's the feedback I'm getting on the ground, is that okay, everyone wants to be dealing with somebody in the locality or close to them because they have that connection. But it's definitely the language barriers or the communication barriers are huge, and they cause huge frustration, in particular to older people and vulnerable people. It can be really, really challenging for them because it might not be as tech savvy, we'll say, as we might be.
And especially the lack of integrity when service providers are saying that they are calling from Cork, and they're not. I think there's a lack of integrity there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's basic manners. Never mind legislation, but it all filters into that protection and protecting our vulnerable people and protecting our citizens, really, to make sure that they're being looked after.
Absolutely. And Chap as well, there was a report done during the week by the Children's Rights Alliance, and it showed that over 100,000 children are currently living in consistent poverty. Now, since the last election, we've been talking about how much money the government has to spend and what's bringing in taxes, etc. But surely in 2025, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, no, it's very, very upsetting, I suppose, and alarming when they saw those figures during the week. And I suppose what the government has tried to do over the last number of years is introduce measures to try and ease that burden. And obviously, there's the financial, in terms of the child benefit and the various different supports that are there. But also, even, I suppose, non-statutory, so the likes of the free school books and the free school meals, and there are measures like that the government have introduced to try and help and try and support families. It is a challenge, but the school meals is a perfect example. I know everybody might not be a huge fan of it, but for some people that is their only hot meal in a day, and I'm a huge supporter of the school meals. I think it's fantastic. I know there's work being done in terms of the nutrition side to make sure that it's of a higher quality, and that's important as well. But I suppose government needs to recognise that, reflect on it, and make sure that the policies that we have are making sure we shouldn't have that many people in our country that are that are struggling.
And also, definitely, Chap Cleere, we were talking to Alone the other day on our YouTube channel, and they were saying about the senior citizens of Ireland. A lot of them are living in absolute poverty and loneliness.
Yeah. No, it is, and I suppose COVID would have brought out the best in Ireland in terms of when. I use myself as an example. When I would have had a little bit more time with COVID, you were able to drop down and say hello to your neighbour, or say hello to the person that might be living on their own. And it might only be through the window, but it was great to have that, but I suppose now that we're back to normality, for want of a better phrase, that we really need to be cognizant of the fact that there are people out there that, the only person they might see in a day is, for example, when they go out to the shop to get their bread, or that might be the only interaction or go to mass or a match of an evening. So we really need to be cognizant of that as well.
Especially our senior citizens in rural areas as well.
Absolutely. It's like, from a rural perspective, it can be very, very lonely. Like you I know myself. I live in a rural area. You can't, and I love it. But you can feel isolated at times, and you're kind of away from the hustle and bustle of town life and city life. And most people that live in rural areas accept that. But I suppose as you get older, and as maybe your mobility reduces, and things you might have been able to do in terms of maybe just going for a walk around the block or getting your car and driving might be more challenging. It definitely does make it a big issue,
Absolutely. Well, Deputy Chap Cleere, Fianna Fáil spokesperson on agriculture and Fianna Fáil TD for CarlowKIlkenny. Thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us here on the Irish Political Roundup.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Definitely, before we go, we have 20 of our defence forces.
It couldn't go without you.
No, I couldn't bring them up.
You're consistent.
The Defence Forces, 20 of our 3rd Infantry Battalion Defence Force members are over in the 126 Infantry Battalion in Camp Shamrock. Would you like to send a message to them and their families?
Look, just as always, we're incredibly proud of our Defence Force, of the work that they do, of the peacekeeping missions that they have, and as I said to you, just on behalf of the Irish people, we're very grateful, we're very proud. We wish you well. We're thinking of your families as well and the sacrifices that they're making. But just keep up the great work, and as I said, you're doing your country proud, you're doing your family proud, and we're all proud of you as Irish citizens.
And Deputy Chap Cleere, we sent you a proposal for an annual national thank you for your service day, and you've sent it up to the higher powers.
Absolutely, I've passed it on to the powers that be. So it would be great if we could. It would be fantastic, because you can never have enough bank holidays or public holidays or days out of that. So I said that to the relevant powers. So hopefully it's something that could be looked at in the context of these goddess budget, but it's definitely something that's worth exploring. There's a good few other competing options. Like somebody was talking about this St. Columbus Day and different things like that. But I think the National Service Day is a fantastic idea. I'd love to support it, and I'd love to see it getting the traction it deserves. And we have a few little gaps in our calendar. Like I would look at, we say we have a May bank holiday, June bank holiday, August. We don't have July. So perhaps there's an opportunity in July, in the summer, when everybody's feeling good and it's good form, and hope we get good weather like today. It would be great to have a day of that. So I passed it on to the powers that be. I've raised it, but hopefully it'll happen.
And maybe it will bring back a sense of national pride, not just in our nation, but in our defence forces and our frontline services.
Yeah, and as I said to you, COVID again is a perfect example. Like, it was really, really appreciative. The Irish people just saw firsthand, and I suppose took a step back and realised the importance of the frontline workers and of our defence forces, and everything is brilliant about those. So it's I say, now that we're back into a bit of normality, sometimes you can take it for granted a little bit. So I think a day like that technology would be super, and it would be, I think the whole country would row in behind that, strong, as I would, as I'm a big supporter of it.
And when we have a national disaster, who do we call? The Defence Forces.
Absolutely. And there's never a time, whether it be flooding or whether it be frost or snow or anything, they're always there, they're always on hand, and they provide a fantastic service. And from a Kilkenny perspective, we're so lucky to have the 3rd Infantry Battalion in Kilkenny, that we have that tradition and heritage. And obviously there's an awful lot of people that go through the ranks there from Kilkenny and beyond. But even from an economic perspective, it's huge to the city that we have 400 or 500 people in the barracks or assigned to the barracks, and that's a huge spin off to the local business as well. So as I said, we need to make sure that the 3rd Infantry Battalion remains, but that we continue to get additional funding to make sure that the infrastructure and the services there are modern and fit for purpose, and to the top standard.
And a national thank you for your service day will bring even the children within our schools and the communities a real sense of pride in our defence forces and our Garda Síochána and all our healthcare teams and all our frontline services.
No, I think so, and I think it could be something that could really, really take off. So look, I'm supportive of it. It's not my decision, unfortunately, but I have passed it up to the boss man, to the Taoiseach, and to the Parliamentary Party. So hopefully we'll get a bit of traction, and conversations can start happening in terms of what it looks like, how it goes, and I'm sure it might be discussed on one of the committees in the coming weeks and months.
I really appreciate it. Maybe you'll get back to us on anything to report.
100%, yeah. Thanks very much.
Well, Deputy Chap Cleere, Fianna Fáil TD for CarlowKIlkenny, thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us here on the Irish Political Roundup.
Well, thank you.